Finally, in SEAL training, there's a bell. All you have to do to quit is ring the bell. Ring the bell, and you no longer have to wake up at 5 o'clock. Ring the bell, and you no longer have to do the runs, the obstacle course, the PT, and you no longer have to endure the hardships of training. If you want to change the world, don't ever, ever ring the bell.
You are listening to the Kill to Quit podcast hour presented by Kill Clip Performance Drinks.
Enjoy drinking Kill Clip after sweaty workouts, big rides, full rounds, long days, longer nights, or whenever you feel the need to get back up to full speed.
Kill Clip Performance Drinks for Warriors. Ignite, endure, recover. And now, Mark Zinno.
Welcome in to Kill to Quit, brought to you by Kill Cliff. I am Mark Zinno, your host. This week's Badassador, well, it redefines the term, because he is a guy who not only spent 20 years as a Navy SEAL in the military, but he holds the world's record for race across America. He's a double Ironman, a triple Ironman, just unreal physical accomplishments. He is Wayne Dowd on Kill to Quit. Wayne, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right, so look, this story is just unreal. Like, forget 20 years in the military, forget 20 years in the Navy SEALs. There's so much you've done post your military career that most people couldn't do in their 20s, and you've been doing it, I don't want to date you, but let's say on the back nine of life.
Yeah, almost 55.
So I mean, it's just an incredible story of just fitness and endurance and all that. But let's go back to the beginning, because, you grow up as a young kid, and it's hard to know that you wanted to be a Navy SEAL at that point in time. Tell me about how you kind of went through your life and made the decision to go into the military and be a Navy SEAL.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny how the story panned out. Graduated from high school when I was 17, small town in New England, Wakefield, Rhode Island, on the coast. It was you were either going to build stone walls or you were going to be a fisherman. And my mom was like, hey, that's not what I'm going to let you do with your life. So one day she coerced me into going to Boston to go visit some quote-unquote friends who turned out to be the Navy recruiter's office. Dropped me off. There was no lunch. Signed up for the Navy that day. And in October of 2001, that's where I started my career in the Navy.
Wow.
So it was pretty, I owe everything in my career from the time I graduated from high school really to now to my mom.
Wow, that is, I mean, that seems like a spur-of-the-moment decision for you. It was,
my mom was right, so I always tried to be a good kid, and I got in normal teenage trouble, and I did normal teenage things, and, played sports. I was a mediocre athlete in school, and it was kind of one of those, okay, well, you're not going to build stone walls or work on a fishing boat. You're going to go do something else. You're going to get out of Rhode Island, and that's basically what I did. I joined the Navy and went to Great Lakes, and really, for the most part, the rest is history. I spent 2 years in the regular Navy working on an aircraft carrier, of all things. I was going to be an oceanographer, and that didn't pan out because the Navy got rid of the program. And
did you even enjoy oceanography? Or the Navy just told you that's what they wanted to do?
I did. And I love the ocean. I do have a tremendous love for the ocean, although I live in the mountains now. But, when you live on the ocean and you spend so much time in the ocean in your career, you want to get far away from it as possible. I don't even swim in pools. It's just you don't want to be involved with sand. You don't want to be involved with water. You spend so much time in it, you just want to be away from it. But yeah, so I spent 2 years in the regular Navy, and slinging paint is not what I wanted to do. So I actually connected with some guys on the USS America at the time. They were they were SEALs, and it interested me. And I took my entrance exam. I passed. I was actually, quote unquote, I don't know how I did it, but smart enough to get into the teams. And so I went to BUD/S, and the rest is kind of history. It's just how it all panned out. So it's a pretty cool story. And like I said, everything revolves around my mom and making sure I did what I did.
Now, you mentioned that you weren't a great athlete. And I only preface that by when you talk about the physical nature of what it requires to be a SEAL and BUD/S in general. Did you, and especially given what you have done now, double Ironmans and things of that nature, Did you know that you had kind of this reserve of mental and physical stamina prior to going to Buds? Or is this kind of you just, I'm going to do this and see what happens?
It was kind of, it intrigued me. I had no idea. So I was a tiny kid. I did all my growing in boot camp. Quite funny, you put your clothes on when you leave boot camp, and it's like, well, I grew 2 feet and gained 10 pounds, and you look ridiculous. I look like Justin Bieber running around in my high school clothes. I went to Buds, and I knew I wasn't going to quit. And everybody said, you're going to quit, you're going to quit, you're going to quit. I knew I wasn't going to quit because I knew I did not want to go back to the fleet. I knew I didn't want to sling paint. I knew I didn't want to go out to sea for 8 to 10 months. And for sure, I had orders taped to my locker to the USS Forrestal had I not made it through Buds. And that was my motivation every day. And that was the one thing that the instructors never messed around with, was my orders taped to my wall. Everything else was free game to them, but they never touched those.
Wow, that's interesting. For those civilians listening who aren't familiar with the military, Buds Basic Underwater Demolition School, it's the entrance into the Navy SEALs. It's just an incredibly grueling course, and you talk about quitting. For those who don't know, there's a bell there you can go and ring when you say, hey, I've had enough of this. You go and ring the bell, and every other SEAL I've talked to, they treat that bell a little bit differently. Like some guys, when they hear it, they're like, that's the motivation. When I hear that bell, I push harder because I'm never ringing that bell. Mm-hmm. And other guys look at it as hey, I understand it. I mean, it's not for me. I don't, I know I can do this. And they're very kind of reserved about it. What was your theory on the bell?
My bell was, okay, there it is. It's pretty cool looking. Somebody's shining it. Somebody's keeping it clean. Not going to be me. I'm not touching it. I don't quit. I don't quit. And I really learned those important lessons in Buds. I learned not to quit in Buds. And the bell was a point of almost fear when you heard it. You're like, okay, who just ended his career as a SEAL, as a team guy, who just quit? And you turn around and you're looking at your buddy. I was like, well, crap, why'd you do that? Well, I don't know why I did it. It just seemed like the right thing to do at the time. Well, I didn't even look at it. It wasn't even a part of my day. You just.
Did you know anybody in Buds who talked to you about, man, I can't take this anymore? And did you try to talk them out of it, or is it one of those things where you just let people make their own decisions?
You do eventually, but you have to worry about yourself.
Right.
And my roommate in Buds, and his name was Mark Davey, and I remember him, and he was a great guy. He was a college wrestler, fabulous guy. He knew pain. He knew what it takes to start something and to finish something, because those wrestlers are really what they recruit a lot of. They recruit swimmers. They recruit a lot of wrestlers. They recruit a lot of people that do a lot of individual sports because they know how to suffer. And really, quite frankly, suffering is part of the job. And if you don't know how to suffer, you either learn or you quit. And Mark, his big thing was the water. He had like about as much body fat as a piece of paper. And he, every time he got in the water, he froze, and he just didn't like it anymore. And, I tried to talk him out of it, and, he quit. You grab him by the arm, you tackle him, you do what you got to do to make him not quit. But at the end of the day, you got to worry about you too. And, you can't, if it's in their mind that they're done, then they're done. Right. External motivation is not going to help them. It's got to be that internal fire, that internal drive to say, okay, well, you don't want to suffer anymore, but I do. I haven't met my limit. And, quite frankly, why I do what I do now is because I really haven't met my limit yet. I don't know where my limit is.
So you never got close? Never had the day where it was like...
Never thought of it.
That's awesome.
Never thought of it. Never crossed my mind. I said, you're either going to have to kill me or you're going to have to drop me, because I am not quitting.
It is Kill the Quit, brought to you by Killcliff. I'm your host, Mark Zinno. This week's guest, Wayne Dowd, former Navy SEAL and now current. I mean, how do you classify what you do? Ironman, and is it an extreme athlete? Like, what do we say?
So, I've never really considered myself an athlete. I just consider myself somebody that likes to do something
that most people don't do.
A common person doing uncommon things.
There you go. We'll leave it at that. Okay, let's continue with your time at the SEALs, because you deployed all over the world multiple times.
Yes.
Did you find that your experience in the SEALs lived up to what you thought it was going to be?
It did. I loved every minute of it. Every minute. I mean, there were certain parts of the job where the suck factor was high, and there were certain parts of the job where the job was extremely boring. And there were parts of the job where you just trained and trained and trained and trained. Just, okay, am I going to get to the game eventually? What's going on? And the great part about being in special operations is you're going to play sometime during your career.
Oh yeah.
And you're not training to wear a blue beanie and be a NATO peacekeeper. You're training to go out and shoot people in the face. That's your job. There's no bones about it. But but being a SEAL was kind of the pinnacle, the highlight of my career. It really taught me that I know I can do pretty much anything I want to do. And I'm still trying to live that. It doesn't identify who I am now. It was who I was.
Do you think you'd be able to do these uncommon things if you didn't become a Navy SEAL?
That's a hard question to answer. I don't think I would have been introduced to it the way I was introduced to it in BUD/S. I did my first double Ironman on a bet from my Commodore for a case of beer.
Oh, I need a little more background on this. How does this whole conversation happen? And it's only a case of beer.
It was a case of beer, and it was a bet.
What kind of beer, by the way?
I don't remember.
Oh, okay.
Hopefully, it was the good stuff.
Say,
I don't
it was
remember.
Good beer.
Yeah, the good German stuff that everybody kept in their lockers.
What was he say to you?
So he said, hey, Wayne, you run a lot, you swim a lot, you ride your bike a lot. What are you going to do with all this stuff? Hey, I bet you can't do Don Mann's, at the time Don Mann owned it, former team guy, called the double Ironman. And I said, well, it sounds intriguing. I've never done a real Ironman. Sure, let's do it. And I didn't train a minute for it other than what I normally do.
See, well, it's starting to make sense to me now. You got some screws loose.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, like you're not normal.
Yeah.
Like that's not a bet that people take with, and not only it's not a bet that people take for a case of beer. People don't take it and not train for it and prepare for it.
Yeah, I use my normal team guy training, my normal SEAL training, and my normal stuff that I did outside of being a SEAL as my training.
Okay, and so as you approach this first double Ironman, you're thinking what? Like, do you know what to expect? Like, do you think you've already dealt with the amount of suck that is going to be worse than whatever you're about to walk into in the double Ironman?
No, because I didn't know, so the expectation wasn't there.
Ignorance is bliss.
Ignorance is bliss. And if you go in there like a bag of a bag of hammers, then you're just going to do what you're going to do. And I had a great time doing it. It was kind of like I didn't train for it. I actually built a bike that I got from a bike shop they were getting ready to throw away because I didn't have a time trial bike and I needed a time trial bike for this event. And I was like, hey, I don't have one. Well, take one out of the trash and build it up. And that's what I did. The swimming I had down pat because, hey, I swim every day in the teams. And you run every day in the teams. And I rode my bike pretty much every day anyway because I was a competitive cyclist on the when I left work.
Wow. What is the actual double Ironman like? What's the requirements for it, for the run, the swim, and the bike?
So the swim, we did the swim in the Potomac up in the Maryland, D.C. area.
Yeah.
And that was a 4.6-mile swim. And then you jump on the bike and you do a 224-mile bike ride. And then you throw your running shoes on and you do a 52-mile run.
And how long do you get? Like 3 or 4 weeks to do this?
No, I did it in 31 hours. 31 hours. Yeah, there was a lot of suffering on the run. Not gonna lie, a lot of suffering on the run.
So you were up straight for 31 hours.
Yes.
Okay. So,
but hey, when I was in Hell Week, I was awake for a week.
That's true. But okay, ever experience anything like that in combat?
Yeah.
So
Well, you're awake.
the
You're
31
awake.
out. Yeah, I
Yep,
mean
you're
that
awake.
okay.
Yeah.
So you've done that before. That part wasn't odd to you. Nor was the actual physical endurance that comes with it. It's just I guess a different kind of
It's a different kind of mental game.
yeah.
It's a mental game. Your body's going to do it. You tell it to do it. You tell it not to do it, it's going to stop.
That's beyond impressive. All right. This is Kill the Quit, brought to you by Kill Cliff. Wayne Dowd is our guest. We're going to take time out. When we come back, we'll find out how your military career ends and how you dive into these endurance sports full time. And not only that, why people are paying you to pace them for an Ironman. That's how legit your skills are. He is Wayne Dowd. This is Kill the Quit, brought to you by Kill Cliff. I'm your host, Mark Zinno. Take a time out. Come back with more right here on Kill the Quit.
You're listening to the Kill the Quit podcast hour, presented by Kill Cliff Performance Drinks.
Kill Cliff, performance drinks for warriors to get you up, get you through, and get you back to full speed.
And now, back to the show with host Mark Zinno.
Welcome back to Kill the Quit, brought to you by Kill Cliff. I'm your host, Mark Zinno. This week's guest, Wayne Dowd, former Navy SEAL, and now endurance sports champion. Like, just incredible, the amount of physical feats that you have accomplished, including the double Ironman, as we just discussed prior to going to break. And let's pick up there, because you did that while you were on the teams.
Yes,
when you
I
did
was
your first
still
one.
active, yes.
22 years as in the Navy overall, but how do you know when you're done? I mean, did the Navy tell you were done, or you said, hey, I just need to move on to the next phase of my life?
So I needed to move on to the next phase of my life. Really what it is I have, I have a family. I have a son and 3 daughters and grandchildren. The grandchildren now, I didn't have them in the previous. But I really needed to focus on what I was going to do next. And I did get education when I was in the military. And one of the things that was very important to me was keep myself marketable. And what I mean by marketable is getting out younger versus getting out older. And people just don't want to hire a 50-year-old, team guy. They want to hire somebody that they can use for a long time. And that's what I did. I went and got, my program management certificates or education. I did all of the stuff that I needed to do, all the crap schools that you need to do while you're in the military. I got my degree while I was in the military. And it's hard. I was on the 6-year program. So, it took you 6 years to get your degree because you're deploying a lot. Yeah. You're training a lot. And then, okay, by the way, when you're not doing that, you have to be a husband and a dad. So you got to be a soccer coach, and you got to be, you got to do these things. And so it took a long time to do what I have to do, what I did. And at that point, hey, it's time to get out. I was retiring in 2001. 9/11 went down, automatic recall, and they kept me for an extended time. And after a certain amount of time, they let me go, and it was time to go. By that time, I was in my early 40s, and it was just time for me to go.
And not to get too personal, but to be a team guy, because the life is so demanding as far as the requirements of the job. You're gone 6-7 months at a time. You're home for 3 or 4 weeks, a month, maybe 2, and you're out again. The fact that you were able to put all this together and balance it and still keep a family, because look, the fact of the matter, divorce rate's high in the SEALs. Mm-hmm. In the teams, it just is.
In the military in
the
general.
Special operations community, it's very high. It's higher than it is for the rest of the military because of the nature and the operational tempo of what you have to deal with. Do you look back on how you were able to balance that and marvel at it and go, I mean, how did all this work out in my favor?
Well, I attribute it to, we're not married anymore, but my former spouse, Christy, did an amazing job raising the children and keeping the household together, and allowed me to go out and play Cowboys and Indians. And then when I came home, it was time to be dad and time to be Wayne. And I have a really close friend of mine who used to call it the 2 faces of Wayne. One face is your team guy face, and the other face is your dad, soccer coach, husband face. And that's kind of how you have to live your life. You can't bring your work home. You bring your work home, and then it's too intense, and you can't live like that. It's just too intense. You need to have that decompression point. And the decompression point, quite frankly, was my kids, and then doing all the things that I did with my kids.
Did your kids ever ask you questions about all this endurance sports stuff and say, Daddy, what the hell are you doing?
They did. They're like, why? You're dumb.
You can drive, Dad. You don't have to run all the way there.
Right,
you can drive.
Hey, I'm going to do 200 miles on my bike today. I'll see you guys in 12 hours. Well, why? Why don't you just drive there? Well, because I'm going to start and end here. Well, why do you want to do that? Well, because it's there. Because I know I can do it. And you really, quite frankly, I think, or I hope, that it has helped my children realize that anything that they can do, that they put their mind to do, they can do.
Right.
They can do it. And, all my children are involved in sports. All my children are athletic. They're all really good students, and I'm super proud of them in their own individual way. My son took up bike racing, and of course he's trying to raise his family, so he's kind of put bike racing on the back burner for a while. My oldest daughter, she's a bike rider and a mom and an athlete, and my middle daughter is a college, volleyball player, and I'm super proud of her. She just finished up her second year, going into her third year of school in kinesiology. And then, of course, my youngest daughter is an athlete. She plays volleyball, she plays soccer, she plays softball, and she does taekwondo.
Wow.
So she's doing a lot.
So the apple doesn't fall far, in other words, is what you're telling me here.
Yeah, well, they're much better athletes than I ever was at their age.
Well, let's get back to you getting out of the Navy, because you kept yourself marketable. You know that there was another phase of your life that you were going to do. How does it transition into this endurance sports thing that it just kind of becomes that next phase? Because did you go into it thinking this is what I'm going to spend my time doing, or you were looking for like a job where you were going to go to work every day?
So I went to work as soon as I retired from the military. I did some work with a group of people, and their names will not be disclosed. And that was a great job. It was great. It was a great path. It really helped me transition. Once I left that, I was spent a couple years doing that job, and then I went to work for Booz Allen Hamilton, which was a fabulous company. Mm-hmm. And I spent 7 years working with Booz Allen Hamilton, and the great part about it is I was still in the fight. I might not have been pulling the trigger anymore, but I was helping guys by delivering, whether it be institutional training or technology to the fight, and helping these guys be better soldiers, saving lives, giving them great equipment, and that was my extra contribution to the military, and I still hold true to that. I mean, I'm still in the fight per se. I'm just not wearing a uniform. Did
the job at Booz Allen Hamilton and kind of doing that tangential or indirect stuff with the military, did you go back to that because there was a sense of the regular civilian world didn't stoke the flames the way the teams did?
There was no challenge there.
Right.
There was no challenge there. I mean, it was I don't want to go to work for a paycheck. I mean, yeah, the money's great, but I don't want to go work for a paycheck. My job has to mean something to me.
Sure. And so was that the enticing part of the whole thing? Because my question was going to be, how quickly did you miss the life?
Well, I still missed a life.
Really?
I missed a life the day I left. I still miss it. I mean, granted, you're just a number. And when you get your 214, your retirement papers and say, okay, yeah, you honorably served the military, see you later. The next day, I got my, I had to go into my command to clean out my gear locker, and I had to get an escort. And I'm thinking, okay, well, got it, roger that. I'm just a number. And that was a quick realization to the fact that, hey, you might have been, quote unquote, the tip of the spear, but, at the end of the day, you're an asset until they don't need you anymore or you leave. And then at that, you were a has-been,
Yeah, it's a cold way to look at it. I can relate, obviously, but I just, you don't really, I guess you don't think about it that way till you're on the outside.
It's a cold way to look at it, but it really helped me shape my identity.
How so?
Because I didn't, being in the teams was a great life, but I quickly learned that I have to build another life outside of the being in the military, and that is my identity. Being a SEAL was who I was, not who I am.
Right, Makes sense. It is Kill the Cliff, brought to you by Kill Cliff. I am your host, Mark Zinno. Wayne Dowd is our Badassador of the week here as we continue his story. So, Booz Allen Hamilton, all that is there, fine and good. When do we start riding bikes and swimming like crazy and running for real as kind of the passion that becomes a career?
So I was always a bike racer. Ever since I was a little kid. I raced BMX tracks and I raced. There was a gap of time where, hey, I just can't do it anymore because I'm too busy. But when I deployed to Europe or I deployed to all these really cool places and we were there for an extended period of time, my bike was always with me. And I always trained. I held an international cycling license, so I was able to race over in Europe for a couple of years, which was a lot of fun. And so the transition into endurance sports happened after I was retired, and a group of guys came up to me and said, "Hey, we're getting ready to start a foundation. We would like you to be a part of this." And the foundation was an organization called Team 4 Mill. And what that organization did was it was an organization founded to bring combat injured service veterans into what their new normal would be, instead of going home and pontificating about, the lack of legs or the lack of arms or any type of unseen injury. It helped them reshape, hey, you can do more just because you don't have legs. You can race a bike just because you don't have legs. We can get you hand cycles. So it helped re-engage these guys into what their new life is. That organization, we did that. We used the vehicle of the Race Across America. My first Race Across America was in 2011, and we did that with Team 4 Mill, raising awareness for combat injured service veterans. We got second place that year with a time of I think it was 5 days and 12 hours to get across the country. And then we built on that. And then I did it a couple of more times to where the point where we broke the record, where we partnered with a United Kingdom team called Strategic Lions, and their mission was pretty much the same as ours. We did 4 Americans and 4 UK, and then we just absolutely hammered across country and broke the record that was set the previous year. We broke that record by, I think, an hour and 12 minutes.
So, Race Across America. Now, I'm thinking someone says to you, hey, we're going to race across America. And much similar to the way your commanding officer offered you a case of beer for an Ironman, you didn't probably think about what this is and just said, yeah, let's go.
I was like, I'm down. What do I got to do? You just ride really fast for as long as you can. I was like, I'm down with it. Let's go do it.
Are there many decisions in your life where you actually stop to pause to think about what this whole thing entails before you jump in, or you just kind of go in feet first and say what happens?
When safety is involved.
Well,
if I'm going to get hurt, but yeah, I know I'm going to get hurt doing some things, but it's all calculated.
All right. So,
like I said, man, I don't know where my limit is. I haven't found it.
I mean, is that something that really kind of, motivate's not the right word. I mean, because obviously you don't need much motivation. Like you're your own motivator at this point.
I'm all internal.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, I don't look at anything as like external motivation, but, are you trying to find your limit constantly?
No, because I don't want to hurt myself.
Okay.
I'm old. I'm 55. I'm 55 in a couple of months, and I need to work on Monday, and I need to be functional on Monday morning when I go to work. And I would like to know where my limit is and see where it goes to see. And, I've never been there. I don't know if it's a scary place or I don't know if it's an abyss, but we'll find out. I mean, eventually I'm going to do something where I'm actually going to have to find that hole and bury myself deeper into it.
When you see other people reach their limit, right? And like you did in Buds and people quit, or when they do these races and you can tell that they're just dragging, like, they're just, their tank is on empty and you can see the toll it's taking on their face. What do you think when you see those other people struggle with things you can do with relative ease.
Right. Well, it's not that it's at ease. It is. It doesn't get any easier. It just gets. You get used to it. You get numb. And I look at him and I said, "Hey, poor bastard."
That's awesome.
Do you need a hug? You need a peppermint? So that's what I do when I race. It's kind of funny. I carry a bag of spearmint lifesavers, and I see somebody that's really down and out, and I just give them a spearmint lifesaver. Say, hey man, have a lifesaver. Spearmint kind of invigorates your body, and it kind of makes them happy. So hey, here, have a lifesaver. Good luck. And a lot of times people are thankful for that little piece of candy, that little pick me up. That it takes away from their mental anguish or their physical anguish at that very minute, and kind of redirects their energy a little bit. But it's I feel sorry for some of them, and some of them I'm like, hey, all right, you're done. Good job, you hit it. Good job. I'm gonna keep going. See you later.
It's Kill the Quit, brought to you by Kill Cliff. Again, I'm your host, Mark Zinno. Wayne Dowd is our badassador this week. We'll take a time out when we come back. More on the ultra sports, the endurance sports that Wayne is doing, and what is next for him as well, his connection with Kill Cliff. We'll get to all that and more coming up on Kill the Quit, brought to you by Kill Cliff.
You are listening to the Kill the Quit podcast hour, presented by Kill Cliff Performance Drinks, proud partner of the Navy SEAL Foundation.
Welcome back once again to Kill the Quit, brought to you by Kill Cliff. I'm your host, Mark Zinno. Wayne Dowd is our badassador of the week as he joins us and continuing his story after a 22-year career in the Navy, including time with the Navy SEALs, moving on to endurance sports, ultra sports, as we talk about double Ironmans, races across America. When you do these things, is there a reason to do them again for you, or is it just one of these things where, do you worry about times? Do you worry about, or is that just a byproduct, or, the result happens and it is what it is? But are you looking to do another double Ironman and win as opposed to finish third or second?
I would like to be better. Every time I do something, I want to be better at it. Even if it's a 2-second improvement, it's better. Will I ever do a double Ironman again? Probably not. Because of my innate hatred of the water anymore. I'm just kidding. I don't hate the water, but I do swim sometimes for fitness, but I really don't have any desire to do the Ironman type events. And I take my hat off to those people that do it, from the pro level down to the moms and dads, that go out there and do the grind. And I love going out there and watching them and motivating them and cheering for them on the side of the road. I love doing that. But for me to go out and do another double Ironman, triple Ironman, it's really there. I have my aspirations belong to, my long distance cycling, the running that I do, and some of the coaching that I do on the side to help people improve themselves and let them know that, hey, just because it's a long race doesn't mean you can't do it. Just because it's going to suck doesn't mean you can't do it. Just because it's, the likelihood of your thought process, like, hey, I'm done, I want to quit. You got to think past that. You got to suppress that desire to, to quit and just move past the suffer, and hit that moment of bliss, if you will. That moment is like, wow, it's euphoric. Once you get past that fatigue factor, it's almost euphoric. You almost feel like, wow, it's almost an out-of-body experience.
You mentioned the coaching, and I wanted to get into that with you because you actually will pace people during their Ironmans. They'll ask you to pace them. How does one get into that sort of thing? And when you were approached about it, was it something that was kind of like, really? Or were you like, yeah, no problem, I got this?
A lot of it is, so the pacing that I've done has been in the ultra distance running world. And that is, a lot of it is because people get to know who you are. They like your personality. You stay motivated. You are fairly decent at what you do. and for them to say, hey, I would really like you to pace me for this particular event is really kind of an honor.
Sure.
I paced a guy for his 100-miler not too long ago.
100-miler is in a run.
A 100-mile run, and I ran the last 50 miles with him, and I knew what his goals were, and what I do and what I tell you is if you're going to go out and do a 100-mile run and you want me to pace you, what are your goals? Because I'm going to make your goals my goals. And that's what I did. So his goal was to finish this race in California in 24 hours or less. And I ran the last 50 miles with him, and I absolutely hammered his ass into the ground. but he finished in 23 hours and change, and he did better than he wanted to do. He set a personal record. We were last mile. The last mile of the race, we could see the finish line, and this guy was like, hey, I'm done. We can walk the rest of the way. I said, nah, we're not done until you cross the finish line. We're PRing this bad boy. Let's go. Let's get your ass moving. And to the point where you can't touch him, you can't assist him, you can't do anything. You just have to motivate him. So I'm sitting there, 3 o'clock in the morning screaming at him, come on, let's go. Get your ass moving. You wanted this. You asked me to be here. I'm kicking your ass. Let's go.
And he did it?
He did it.
Okay.
Under 24 hours. He finished in 23 hours and 23 minutes or something crazy like that. But super proud of the guy. Of course, he couldn't walk a step. So, it's just carry him to his chair and let his wife handle him from there. And then, I actually do a little bit of coaching with some people that are into the endurance sports and, what to expect, how to train for it, what to carry, what to eat, how to hydrate yourself. So one of the girls that I work with, she did not make her first attempt, but she made her second attempt because we kind of fine-tuned her stuff, great girl, but she loves to take pictures of herself when she's on the trail. And it's like, yeah, just forget your phone and do what you're supposed to do. This is your job today. Make sure you do your job. And it's an accomplishment for me. It makes me feel good knowing that the people that I help, will go out there and they'll do well in their finish. I don't care if you finish with 2 seconds left on the clock as long as you finish.
You completed a 75-mile Georgia death race.
Yes, great race.
Yeah, I'm going to dispute that, but different reasonable minds can choose to disagree. 75-mile run?
75-mile run.
Through Georgia. Starting where and where?
At Blairsville.
Okay.
The start and finish line were pretty close to each other.
Are you running through the mountains of Georgia,
yes.
North Georgia?
Yes.
That doesn't sound like fun.
It was a good time. Great scenery.
When you run 75 miles, can you get in the Peach Pass lane?
No HOV lane. Yeah.
So no 75 miles, and you did it in under 21 hours.
Yep.
Wow.
20 hours and 8 minutes, yeah. Yep.
Do you train for this stuff? Because you said before you didn't train, you just do it.
So for these races, I did, and my training for these races was, because I am an employee. I do have to work. I do have to perform. And, I do have a life outside of my sports. Right. But I did train for it, and I did a couple longer. I would, my weekday runs would, 3 or 4 days a week, do 8 to 10 mile runs. And then my weekend runs would go between marathon to 40-mile runs to train for the 75-mile event.
Do you just routinely run marathons, or is that not enough for you?
So I've never really run. I've run one marathon in my entire life.
Which one?
It was a race in Utah, the St. George Marathon.
Okay.
That's the only marathon I've ever run. So to me, it was easy. I qualified for Boston my first race, and it kind of made some people mad. It's like, how do you go out and do that? It's like, well, I do 65-mile runs, 68-mile runs, 75-mile runs, so a marathon is only halfway.
When you're running that long, music in, headphones, you and your thoughts, left to your own devices?
Me and my thoughts, left to my own devices. Sometimes you need to tune out. Sometimes you need to put the anger music in there to redirect yourself. It's like, I'm feeling a little bit of a pity party coming on. Let's throw some Eminem and Lil Wayne on and get angry. And then, just kind of redirect your thoughts, and then I take them out because to me, it's a distraction. And I don't like to be distracted.
Do you ever stop on these races just to take a second, tie your shoes or whatever? I mean, or go to the bathroom? What?
Yeah. So you have to. Yeah. Because you're spending so much time on the trail. You duck off the trail, go to the bathroom. You know, and be very honest, some of the country that we run in is absolutely inspiring. It's absolutely beautiful. So you got to stop and take a look. I mean, it's the scenery is absolutely amazing. You know, my last race I just did out in Leadville, it was stunning. You just got to stop and take it all in and realize how insignificant you really are in the grand scheme of things. You're only a little second in time. Your life is, and if you don't stop and take a look around at what the gift that you have around you is, you know, you're missing out. You're definitely missing out.
Very well said. I can only imagine, you know, some of the views that you see, especially since you're running from like sun up to sundown. You know, you're running for 12 straight hours, whatever it may be, and you get to experience all that. What I don't want to say what do you think about the most when you run, but is there something recurring that comes up when you run and you're by yourself thinking? Do you go to something by default?
You know, I do. So sometimes I think about everything, and sometimes I think about nothing at all. I have an arm full of ravens. Of course, you can't see it on the radio, but and each raven represents one of my close friends that were killed in Iraq or Afghanistan. And when I feel the need to redirect my energy, I just kind of look down and I realize, you know, why I do what I do and who I do it for, and they become my motivation. You know, these are guys that paid the ultimate price. These are the guys that can't go home to their families anymore. They can't, you know, go to Christmases anymore. They don't have birthdays anymore. They don't have any of this stuff anymore. So I felt it's my responsibility to do this.
It's inspiring, you know, and certainly commendable. And of course, you know, we're sorry for the loss of your brethren through everything that happened. But, you know, the fact that you can attribute some of to what you do and some of the personal successes you have to their memory, obviously, is part of the reason why you do what you do. More about the actual races themselves and running themselves. Again, he's Wayne Dowd. It is Kill the Cliff, brought to you by Kill Cliff. I'm your host, Mark Zinno. You know, the nutrition aspect of this whole thing, like when you're running for 20 straight, how many gel packs can you carry? Like, what do you do to make sure your body and muscles just don't give out?
So my first real endurance race was a race out in California. It was called the Gold Rush 50K. It was 32 miles. I was like, yeah, I can do 32 miles. Yeah, no problem. 32 miles is, you know, I can drive 32 miles in an hour. You know, let's run it and see what we can do. And I did it in like 5 hours and change. And I had such a horribly upset stomach and, you know, just squeezing goo packs down my throat. And I realized, okay, goo packs are the enemy. I don't use goo packs anymore unless I absolutely need a couple calories in my system, because that stuff is so hard to dissolve and it turns my stomach into a big bucket of cake batter. So I just go real food. You know, for the first 5 or 10 miles, I'll squeeze a couple goos or a bar or something. But after that, I go real food. I go ham and cheese and pickle slices.
Where do you carry it?
I have a hydration pack and you just jam food. I make little burritos. I make, you know, egg sandwiches and rice treats with jelly in them. And I get real food, real calories. Ensure 365 that has like 380 calories. I'll suck one of those down. That's where I connected with John, and John, hey, I have this drink I really want you to try out, the Kill Cliff Endure, which has been money in the bank for me, because that's what I drink. I put the Kill Cliff Endure in my flasks, and I have water in my bladder, and that's what I drink. And this thing has been money. It's bar none the best performance drink I have drank that doesn't get my stomach upset. And it gives me the ability to have, you know, a time-released sugar and an electrolyte over a normal Gatorade, which is almost immediate, and then you get the crash.
Right, yeah. As far as regular eating and nutrition is concerned, when you're not running, you probably have to consume an awful lot of calories, or you really don't eat that strange.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. I have a really long story, and not to bore you with it, but I got my ass kicked by a nutritionist because I was eating all the wrong food for what I'm doing.
Really?
Yeah. So she's like, "Hey, you're only consuming 12 to 1,500 calories a day on a normal day. You need to be doing 2,200 to 2,500 calories." So she put me on a super strict diet, super strict plan. Stay away from sugar, stay away from bread, but I'm a bread whore, man. I love bread. I love bread more than anybody in the world, I think. Yeah, give me a loaf of bread and some peanut butter and jelly, and I'm good to go. But, so a super strict diet. She's got me on a great program, high proteins, high, lots of green vegetables, broccolis and kales and all the good stuff.
What's next for you? I mean, you mentioned before you're 55 years old. How much longer do you want to do this? Is it something that your body will tell you when to stop?
Yeah, my body's going to tell me when to stop, and it's not telling me yet. So I have, everybody has it on there because they think they're doing their civic duty when they do it. Do you want to be a donor? Yeah, put it on there. It's cool. You can take my parts when I die. My goal is to, when they take my parts to die, they don't want them. They're just too beat up. Stuff his guts back in there. We don't want it. It's too beat up. Give it back to him. Yeah, this guy lived. That's
pretty awesome. It's a great way to phrase it. So you are one of Kill Cliff's badass adores. You've had an incredible career both in the Navy SEALs and as an ultra sport athlete, and that kill the quit mentality that we talk about. When you hear that, what do you think of?
I don't. Well, it's actually a great term. I love it. The kill the quit. I mean, hell, I might even tattoo it on my chest. But it's a mindset. It's, you can say, hey, you're going to kill the quit, but you gotta own it. Mm-hmm. It has to be a mindset. It has to be something that you say every day. I'm not going to quit at work. I'm not going to quit in life. I'm not going to quit being a dad. I'm not going to quit being a good partner to my girlfriend. I'm not going to quit being a good friend. I'm not going to quit being a good human. And that's, if you decide, you have to find out in your mind what's going to kill that. You gotta sequester that. You got to kill that quit.
Yeah, I mean, you've been doing that for much longer than you probably ever thought. Since the phrase has been around. I mean, obviously,
I was thinking about a lazy boy and beer, man. It's not there yet. I don't own one yet.
I mean, it's unreal what you continue to do, not only at your age, but just the example that you set. And I think it's fantastic that you're still doing what you're doing. And certainly, look, take care of yourself. I mean, your body certainly is your temple, right? I mean, at this point in time, you've got nothing else left.
Yeah, we abuse the shit out of it, but it's that's what it's for.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Wayne Dowd, thank you so much for joining us this week. An incredible story. We certainly appreciate you coming by.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, and it's been a pleasure.
And this has been another episode of Kill the Quit, brought to you by Kill Cliff.
WFON
and W292EV Marietta,
a Dickey broadcasting station.
Live from the Wellstar Health System Studios.
1230 and 106.3 FM, The Sports X.